Benjamin L. Stewart. Benjamin L. Stewart is a full professor in English as a foreign language, teacher training and researcher at Universidad Autónoma de Aguascalientes. We are interested in researching personal learning networks as open, ongoing professional learning. He holds a PhD in education with a specialization in instructional and curriculum leadership, and a master's degree in education, curriculum, instruction, technology. Visit Benjamin's website at benjaminstewart.org, which includes links on his weekly podcast that he co-hosts with Pidi Herrera called Teacher Learning Cast. Follow him as well on Twitter at BNLWC. Let's give a round of applause.
Everyone, I'm hoping that you are enjoying the conference so far. I know I am, learning a lot so far. Today, I was thinking about my topic here in professional learning, and today I'm going to talk about this idea of personal learning networks. But this quote, I think, really sums up what I want to talk about today. 10%, life is 10% what happens to you, and 90% how you react to it. So I was thinking about my thoughts and what I want to talk about today. I really want to address those of you who are students who are wanting to be professional teachers later on, what you can do now in these semesters that you're studying. And also, I want you to take the same information with you as you get into the field of education and you get more experience over time. But I really want to talk to you about what you can do now to really further your personal learning network. Okay, so the title of my talk, Seldom Do Teachers Become Lifelong Learners by Accident? So I really want I want to give you some clear ideas what you can do to be a better lifelong learner. So this idea of a personal learning network, what comes to mind when you think of the word network?
Like internet? I don't know.
Okay, internet?
Yeah.
Okay, so we think of the internet, and what is the internet? What makes the internet a network? Sorry?
A web.
Okay, it's a web. And what do you think of when you hear the word web? What kind of animal? A spider, and usually a spider, right? It has the web that just kind of goes out. What's usually in the middle of that web? Usually the spider. In fact, I just saw a spider a couple of days ago. I took a picture of it. It had this beautiful web, and it had the spider right in the middle, right? So this is precisely, I think, what I want you to think about. You are the spider. You are the animal in the middle of this web. And this web, we're going to call a personal learning network. This is going to be your web, your personal, very specific to your case. So you are the spider. Let's see how this works. All right? Now, this morning I got up really early. I was getting ready to leave. And I was trying to come up with some little picture. I couldn't find something online. And this is, I know, horrible. This is how I write. I'm sorry. I don't know if it's because I'm left-handed or what, but I'm sorry. But if you notice, what is in the middle here? And this is probably hard to read. PLN. PLN stands for Personal Learning Network. And in parentheses, it has me. That's me. So I'm in the middle. I have a little circle there. So I'm in the middle. Everything else is an extension of me. Now this is currently, more or less, my personal learning network. And you'll notice on this side, there's another circle. Can you read that word? I know it's horrible. This is classes. Yeah, I know. It's horrible. I know. All of my students are like, you're trying to set the example with that? So classes, right? Classes is part of my personal learning network, right? Even though I teach the classes, guess what? I learn a lot, right? As we're gaining more experience, as you teach more and more, you start to find out how much you actually learn from your students every single day. So I'm no exception. This is what part of my learning experience. And then the UAA faculty. Those are teachers here at the university. I have external educators, other teachers from outside that are all connected. I have on this side TLC, Teacher Learning Cast. This is a weekly podcast that I'm involved with. This is part of my learning network. And a website. I have a website. This is also part of my personal learning network. So we'll see some other examples, but I want to give you kind of an idea. And I'd like for you to think about how you can reach out to your own communities. It can be maybe other classes. Maybe it's other teachers that you work with. Maybe it's teachers that you have class with, that you want to connect with. These are all possible ways that you can connect. Okay, so let's look here at the next slide. So let's look at a definition of a personal learning network. So this is a definition that I came up with doing my research for my doctoral degree. And I look at a personal learning network having three things, and they all overlap. The first is your personal learning network is made up of ideas. Okay, concepts, beliefs, attitudes, ideas that are just concepts that maybe they're your own concepts, maybe they're concepts from someone else. Okay, so these are part of your personal learning network, whatever those ideas might be. Materials. When you think about materials, your personal learning network is going to have materials. It's going to have technologies. It's going to have objects. We're human beings, right? So what are you sitting on right now? This is an object, right? This is allowing us, this chair is allowing us to be together right now. Can you believe it? This is a chair. If we didn't have chairs, I don't think I would have as many people here because they're like, I don't want to stand. I don't want to stand for this presentation. I want to sit and be comfortable. We're in a building. Right? I mean, if we could go out under a tree, I guess, but even a tree, that's kind of an object. But there are objects all around us. If we look at Facebook, right, we like to converse, we like to communicate through Facebook. That's a technology. So as human beings, right, the materials matter. It matters. It's what kind of conversation you're going to have with someone in Facebook versus maybe at a conference, versus maybe in Twitter, maybe in Instagram. They're all different types of technologies that you can choose to what? Share these ideas, these beliefs, whatever they happen to be. Finally, social relationships. This is probably one of the most important. Your relationships, what kind of personal relationships are you going to choose within your personal learning network? Now, this is different than a social network sometimes. Again, sometimes there's some overlap. This is your personal, professional learning network. It's like, who do I connect with that will make me smarter? Right? Who can I connect with? Right? Now, we have our best friends, and maybe our best friends are super smart, right? And we learn a lot from them. That's great. But we also have other people that we can connect with through our ideas, through our materials, into these three that come together as a personal learning network. And you have control over that type of network. All three of these are in part of the language that you use, whatever language it is, whether it's L1, whether it's Spanish or English, right? But this is part of our personal learning network. So, I have 5 main maxims or ideas or characteristics of a personal learning network that I want to share with you today that I think are the main things that are the same for all of our personal learning networks. Number 1, as I mentioned, it's a combination, it's a collection of your materials, ideas, and your social relationships that come together. One of them is not more important than the other. They all come together to form your personal learning network. Number 2, an actor, okay, now an actor is any node. So a node is a connection. Just like the spiders in the middle of the web, right? The web kind of veers off. All of your connections, your communities, if you get into a group in Facebook, that's a node. Another person can be a node, right? It's a connection. So any actor, any node within one's personal learning network that has a potential to change or to cause a change in someone else. So let's think about that for a minute. So if you have a person, you're connecting with someone else, well, a human being, right, changes all the time, right? And that person, if I'm connected to you, if I'm connected to Sophie and she tells me something, she could change my mind, I can learn something from her. And if I'm conversing with her, she has the potential, I have the potential to perhaps change her in some way. So through our communication, we have the potential to change each other, right? And so that's all this means, is an actor is someone or something. It can be Facebook, it can be any type of technology that you use. It's the potential to change someone else, okay? Number 3, a personal learning network never remains constant. And this is really important because some people think, oh, I'm going to create my personal learning network. But guess what? Your personal learning network already exists. It doesn't come from nothing. It already exists. It existed, believe it or not, before Facebook. There was life before Facebook. I swear, I promise. Right? So a personal learning network already exists. What may not exist is your awareness of your personal learning network. What may not exist is how your personal learning network can help you be a better person, a more knowledgeable person, a more competent, skillful person, okay? So, personal learning network is constantly changing. It's growing and it's withering away. It's growing, there's an ebb and flow, back and forth, right? And depends on how we interact within our personal learning network. Number 4, understanding metacognitively one's personal learning network. We can look at it at one particular point in time, right? And we can also look at it over time. So we can look to see how our personal learning network changes over time. We can also look at it at one particular point in time to see, is this personal learning network working for me right now? Right? Is this person that I'm connected with, is this person helping me with my learning, my development, my professionalism, or is it not? Or is he or she not? And number 5, there's been a lot of talk about personalized learning. I don't know if you've heard of this term, personalized learning. It's the buzzword these days, right? And the term personal learning network has been around at least as a buzzword probably 10 years or so. Okay, but personal learning network never really took off. It's just kind of, yeah, some people use it, but now everybody's talking about personalized learning. How can I, the teacher, personalize the learning to my students? Okay, so really today is not so much thinking about a personalized learning, it's more as a personal learning network, where you're in the middle, you're in control, you make the decisions that work best for you. So here, this is just a chart. Personalized learning is in blue. This is like the usage. If you ever use Google Trends, this is a great website, by the way. Google Trends. If you're not sure about certain words in English or maybe certain phrases and you want to say, is this a thing? Is it on the other hand or in the other hand? I forget. Well, we can use Google Trends to count and see. It'll give you a frequency to say, do people use this term or not? But in this case, I'm using personalized learning. I'm trying to show that personal learning network is in red. Not many people are using the term, but I personally think that this is the best term to use to really describe our own learning. Okay? Now, this is hard to read. How does a personal learning network now contribute to your language teacher's professional learning? And I want to use the word learning today, not necessarily the word development. Now, why do you think that is? Why would I like, maybe you don't know me, but why would I like the word learning instead of development? Any ideas? It's more specific? Okay. Any other ideas? Okay. So think of the word like development, at least when I think of the word development and training, it's like, oh, I'm developed now. Feels good, huh? I got my degree, I'm developed, or I'm trained. I'm trained now. So with learning, we're always learning, right? We're always in training. We're always developing. Okay, so I think this is kind of the reason why I like the word learning more than development, right? Because we're never really fully developed. We're always developing. We're always in training. So when you think about teacher competence, okay, think of it basically from three areas: language, linguistics, and teaching. Now, what I mean by language, I mean you as a communicator of the English language and of the Spanish language and any other language that you speak. It's your proficiency level of language. How competent are you? How good of a speaker are you? Okay, and this could be written and or spoken. Linguistics is more about applied linguistics. It's like how languages are learned. It's more about, okay, is this a verb? Is this a subject? Is this a direct object? Is this a prepositional phrase? Right? We could look at discourse analysis and look at all the different ways that language is learned. This is our knowledge about language. And also teaching, pedagogy, right? Teaching. So, we have a BA here. Some of you are familiar with our BA program. I'm using our BA program as a guide for this slide. But I think it applies to almost anyone that wants to be a teacher, regardless of your plan de estudios, your program, your curriculum. So here we have 4 different areas. So we have language proficiency, which is kind of what I mentioned before. Applied linguistics, which is kind of the declarative knowledge. Teaching theory, and teaching practica. We spend a lot of time in our BA trying to help students connect theory with practice. Right? And I know some of you are taking practicum classes. Maybe some of your tutors have asked you, well, what kind of theory? What's your rationale behind teaching this certain way? So how well are you to communicate that information? So theory is kind of a declarative knowledge that goes in with your teaching practice, which I view more as procedural knowledge. Procedure is what you do, how good are your skills in teaching with your students. The declarative knowledge is what you know. It's knowing that something. Okay, it's your understandings. Okay? So, we look at our personal learning network, and there's a mistake on this slide. These arrows are okay on the left. On the right, it should be back and forth. It's a back and forth relationship between the personal learning network, right? It's the materials, the people that you know, right? The ideas that you share, how that comes into your competencies, okay? Each of your competencies. And think about, like if you look at these 4, think about which area, and I'll do the same, which area is your weakest? Okay, so I'm looking at mine. Which area do you need to further more your language proficiency? Is that your weakest? Is it your teaching practice? Is that your weakness? Think about your personal weakness that maybe falls under one of these 4 categories. Then think about, well, how can I find my personal learning network that helps me in that area? Okay, how can I better myself depending on what areas that I need the most work? Okay, so here, if we look to the next slide, we jump to this idea of an e-portfolio. How many of you have, I'm curious, an e-portfolio? Okay, some of you have an e-portfolio, some of my past students, all right? I'm hoping and praying that some of my students I've had in the past are still using their e-portfolios. But if not, there's still time to do that. But an e-portfolio, what do you keep in your e-portfolio? Anybody want to share what kind of stuff is in your e-portfolio?
Your teaching, you was a teacher, something like that, like your educational philosophy.
Educational philosophy, that's a really good thing to include in your e-portfolio. What is an educational philosophy?
It's like your principles or your basis that your beliefs as a teacher, what you want to achieve as a teacher to give to the world, to receive from the world, what you're committed to do as a teacher.
Okay. And do you remember the prior slide? What category of teacher competency do you think sharing that information is promoting or improving? What do you think? Remember the different, do you remember the four? What was the first one over here on the left? Language proficiency, and then applied linguistics, and then teaching theory, and then teaching practice. So in educational philosophy, of those four, what do you think that helps the most or promotes the most? If you had to choose one. Teaching proficiency, applied linguistics, teaching theory, or teaching practice. Any ideas? This is not a quiz, okay, so nobody's, no worries. Which one do you think? Maybe teaching theory, right? If your educational philosophy is to share, okay, who do I teach? Why do I teach? How do I teach? Maybe there's some theory, some theoretical knowledge that you need to share in your educational philosophy. So, an e-portfolio. This idea of an e-portfolio is something that I promote from Propedeutico. We have a propedeutic year here in the BA. And I introduce e-portfolios with my students and all my students from Prope, all the way, to fourth semester. I teach a fourth semester group. But we in the VA want to promote an e-portfolio at every level of your development here in our BA program. The idea is that each student develop his or her own e-portfolio. Okay, and they maintain that same portfolio throughout their BA, and later on when they get into to the profession, they get into the field. So here the idea is to begin from the very beginning of the BA to begin with the e-portfolio, and we encourage all of our students to share their work in their e-portfolio. Now we have some subjects that require teachers, or students, I should say, to include certain aspects in their certain work. Okay? It could be an essay, it could be a video, it could be anything that they create in their classes. We encourage our students to include that in their e-portfolio. Okay, so the idea is that each student has his or her e-portfolio and they contribute a little bit each semester, right, to it. Why? So that when they graduate from the BA, they have their resume and they have their e-portfolio. So they go to a school that they want to work, and they say, here, this is what I know, this is what I can do, this is my knowledge, these are my skills. Maybe there's some videos of some practicum classes, right? And I know a lot of students are like, but I'm just training, it's just little old me, I don't know that much, and I don't have anything to share. You all have something to share. If there's one person that can benefit from you sharing something that you know, right, it's worth it, right? I mean, is there anyone that would disagree with me? I mean, this is why we want to be teachers, right? We want to help others. We want to pass along information and help others learn. So this is just an extension of that, but on a bigger scale. It's like now saying, okay, here to the whole world, potentially, right? This is something that I know. So I want you to think about your own personal philosophy and I want to encourage everyone to try to think about a e-portfolio from this perspective of, hey, I can help someone else. Now, let's assume, this is not true, but let's assume that no one else could benefit from you sharing this information. This is not true, okay? But let's just, for the sake of argument, let's say no one's going to benefit from what I had to share. Guess what? Just by you sharing with someone else, you learn, you get better, right? That's just a fact. And when you teach something, you are learning. You're getting better at something, whether it's speaking, whether it's your knowledge of what you're saying. So just by you sharing with someone else, you're getting better, and it's worth doing. Okay? So e-portfolio, it's a gradual process. It's an e-portfolio not per class, but per student, per individual, per spider. The spider's in the middle of the web. You're the spider. Each spider has his or her own e-portfolio, has his own web. This is part of your web. Let's take another look here to the next slide. Your e-portfolio can be divided up into sections. So when you create your own e-portfolio, we'll look at some examples here in a few minutes. All right? We're going to look at some examples, but you want to spend some time. How do you want to organize your e-portfolio? Remember that your e-portfolio is part of your learning network. It's an extension of you, and it's reaching to other people. Other people might find your e-portfolio. They might call you. They might chat. They might send a message, say, hey, you were talking about your educational philosophy, and when you said that you like to help students through a collaborative approach, what do you mean? They might contact you, right? And so it's this potential, it's this opportunity that you're setting up for yourself, right? It's the opportunities. It may not happen right now, it may not happen tomorrow, but it could happen. And when it does happen, you're going to benefit from it as well as them, okay? So next slide. All right, so artifacts. Let's think about an e-portfolio, and we think of it as in terms of language proficiency. We look at it as applied linguistics. It could be discourse analysis. It could be social linguistics, psycholinguistics, teaching theory, teaching practice. What are some artifacts now? Some types of maybe assignments that might fit into some of these categories. What do you think? And you can speak from experience, those of you who have your e-portfolio. But what are some examples of some artifacts that could fit into some of these categories? Anyone have some ideas? Don't be shy. Teaching practice. What's an easy one? What's an easy artifact? What kind of video? Have you thought about uploading? Has anyone ever uploaded a video of their teaching practice for the whole world to see? How does that make you feel? Do you feel comfortable sharing that information? Would you feel comfortable sharing a video about your class where you provide feedback, a reflection, a personal reflection about the experience? Let's say it was a horrible experience. Okay, so we had a teaching practice and it was horrible. I mean, the students were climbing the walls, they were hanging out the window, and you're like doing this and that, and you didn't know what to do. You're all red in the face, you're sweating, and you're just desperate. How could you turn that, let's say, quote unquote bad experience maybe? How could you turn that into a better, maybe a learning experience? Okay, and how might you reflect? So you got the video. So you go back and you look at the video and you get all upset again. But what could you do with that? To turn it into reflection, what's the best way that you could turn that into a reflective experience?
Like maybe pointed out the things that you did good and things that you didn't do or
okay. All right. And how can you suggest, how can we do that? So we've got the video. Let's get really concrete now. So we're going to do that. We're going to point out positive things. We're going to point out, and I'm going to point out negative things to my own video. But how can I do that? What's a good way? What's one way that we could do that? I've got the video. So let's say I've got the video and I've got the audio and I hear all the kids screaming, right? And it's a disaster. You turn the video down, what could you do? Maybe record your voice over the video. Say, here at this point, when the students were doing this, and you do some sort of reflection in the video. Right? That's one way. You could also do what? Maybe a notes, maybe a written type of reflection, right? To go with the video. But you turn that bad video, the bad class, into a reflection, and now it's something that is more about your own learning process. You're actually showing how you are learning through that process by writing out or verbally communicating what you learned in that experience. Here's the point. You turn that video that you think, oh, I'm never going to show that ever to anyone. I'm just going to burn that video. I'm never going to look at that again. You turn it into an experience where it's a reflective experience, and then a year later you look back at it and you say, wow, I learned a lot. Create another video. You've got two videos that are totally different. One that maybe a bad experience, and another video. But the point here is you've got these videos, you've got this history of you learning from the whole process. And this is the point. This is where the e-portfolio really works well. Now, here, let's see if we can look at some examples. Now, all of these examples, these are links. And if anybody wants this presentation, I will be happy to share this with you. I'm going to start first with my example, and then we'll look at some student examples. Okay, so see if I can. I don't know if this will work. Okay, well, I thought we might be able to look at some examples, but it doesn't look like. Well, let's see. So thinking about e-portfolios, those of you who have e-portfolios, what else can you include in your e-portfolio besides your educational philosophy? Any other things that you've completed in the BA that you're proud of, that you want to share with others? Yes. Oh.
Yeah. Your research works that we do in the BA for psycholinguistics, you can add it to your portfolio.
That's an excellent idea. A lot of the students in the linguistic courses here in the BA are doing little mini projects. They do research, they'll investigate and report. This is a really good way to share this information with others. We looked at some other student work this morning. Some of you probably looked at some other talks of students who are doing research. And certainly conferences are a great way to share your work. But imagine you also sharing it in your e-portfolio, right? And this is something that it could be done in working groups, or it could be done individually. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to show you some examples. But the point I want to make today, you guys, is this. All of you have a personal learning network. And I want you to think about making decisions about understanding what your personal learning network, how it's working for you, right? If it's helping you achieve your competencies, your goals, right? Maybe you have some weaknesses in certain areas, and you say, you know what, I'm not a very good speaker of English, so I know this teacher or this community in Facebook or whatever, I'm going to gravitate, I'm going to join that group, and I'm going to force myself to practice English to better myself, right? It's trying to make those types of decisions so that you are conscious of, okay, this personal learning network is helping me to be better. So, I don't know if anyone has some questions or wants to share their personal opinions or experiences with e-portfolios or with their own personal learning network.
Yeah, I would like to talk about this. Actually, well, we are distinct from the Escuela Normal Superior. You know that there we focus so much on the educational part, more in the teaching theories. Well, we don't have this format that is e-portfolio, but something that we have used for many, many years is the diary, where the teacher, well, at the Normal Superior, they have to go 2 times at the semester to the middle school and to teach 3 or 6 sessions. And then they do that. The first session, they struggle with the teenagers and everything is a mess. But they have to make like this story about what they did, what I did, what I could improve in the way to reflect. And that is the way that they can notice how were their first sessions, and then after 2 or 3 semesters, they can notice which strategies, which teaching aids are good and which are not. And so that's why all our students need to understand that the diary is very important, because as you already mentioned, teacher, here we can have the record of all our experiences and how to improve.
That's a really good point, and I can't stress enough the importance of reflection. It's really, and I think you're doing really good things by having students, giving them the opportunities to reflect on every process from the very beginning. If it's the worst process, right, you're still learning if it's a really bad class. The thing I want you to think about as an individual and or as coordinations or schools is think about to what degree your reflection can be public, or at least can extend beyond, let's say, my own personal reflection or with my tutor, and I'm just sharing it. Because certainly there's value in sharing it with your tutor. But imagine if you shared it with your tutor, you shared it with all of your classmates, and you shared it with students that are above you, and you shared it with 2 or 3 teachers that are in-service teachers that have, let's say, 10, 20 years of experience. Imagine that same reflection if you shared it with all those people. How would it be different than just writing the reflection and you just looking at it by yourself? There's a big difference. Now, you may say, well, maybe some students aren't ready, all right? And maybe that's true. That's possible. But I want you to think about how you can open up your own learning. Right now, I'm recording my presentation. And I want to share this. I'm going to share it probably in my website. I might share it in my podcast. Not because what I'm saying is so important and I'm so smart and I'm so good. No, it's not that. It's not really. It's because if someone can learn something beyond this room, and if I can help them, then for me that's enough to do this, right? To upload the video. So when you are in your learning process, because I'm also in my learning process, standing up today in front of you, I'm learning. So as you go through your learning process, think about someone else can benefit from your knowledge. I promise. You may feel like no one else can benefit, right? But they can. So think about the reflection process. This is very good that you're doing the reflections at every stage, and you've got your journals. Now, think about how you can share that journal in some way in your e-portfolio, maybe along with the video, that someone else can learn something, but you can also express what you learned from that experience. And if you do that over and over, you do that on a periodic basis, let's say in an e-portfolio, guess what you're going to have when you graduate from the BA? You're going to have a history. You're going to have your own teacher identity, your own learning identity out there to show off, to say, look, this is what I know and I learned. Maybe at the beginning, I wasn't all that smart, but now I'm learning a lot, and I have more experience and I have more things to offer. So I think that this is what I want you to take away, if anything from today's talk, is think about your own learning process, think about who you connect with, and think about how you can pay it forward. You can pass it along to someone else. And if you can do that, and if you can shift your culture, your comfort zone, from thinking, oh, no, just me, it's all mine, I don't want to share anything, versus sharing a little bit. Just sharing a little, little by little, isn't it? Like breadcrumbs, and little by little, right? You're going to get more, I feel, out of your own learning, and you are going to be better for it. This is about you. You're going to help someone else, but guess what? You are benefiting. You're the spider in the middle, and you're going to be the smarter spider at the end of the day. I'll stop there for today. Thank you very much for being here in my talk. And if anyone is interested in this presentation, well, there it is. I have my website at benjaminlstewart.org. Benjamin L. Stewart. I don't know if you, sorry, can you go back to the presentation? To the last slide, please. Okay, so it's hard to see. This is my Twitter account. I'm on Twitter, I'm on LinkedIn, and this is my website. So if you want to follow me on Twitter or follow me on LinkedIn, that's where I usually connect with others, not so much on Facebook. And my website, benjaminlstewart.org. So if you want a copy of this presentation, I'll be happy to share that with you. Thank you very much, guys, and enjoy the rest of the conference.
On behalf of the Evaluation of Realty sharing our experiences in the field of commerce, we want to award this diploma and this present to Benjamin L. Stewart. Thank you so much for your participation.